Before we tackle and resume the deliberations of the budget, there are just a few resolutions that we'd like to pass, Mr. President. But before we do that, we'd like to give our deepest condolences on behalf of the Senate on the passing of Congressman Raul Del Mar. Congressman Raul Del Mar was a very dear friend to myself and to my father, as well as her daughter, Cutie. Mr. President, before we tackle our deepest condolences to the family, budget, there are just a few we'll file a resolution to follow.
Yes,
But before
please
we do that, we'd like
count
to
me
give
as one of the authors of the said resolution.
yes, sir.
Yes,
Make all members
To sympathize.
Mr. President. Mr. President. May I,
Senator Del.
yes, Mr. President, why don't we pass the resolution subject to style, a resolution expressing condolence, so that immediately and subject to style, so that if we pass it, when we pass it, the Secretariat can immediately work on it and have the Senate President sign it. I think that's a faster way of doing it. We approve the verbal motion,
Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
With the permission of the body,
Yes.
with the permission of all our colleagues, that the Senate propose a Senate resolution honoring Congressman Raul Del Mar of Cebu City, subject to style. We trust the Secretary to come up with the best wordings possible. Of course,
This will be a numbered resolution,
Yes,
subject
numbered
to style, expressing the deepest sympathy and condolences of the Senate to the family of Congressman Raul Del Mar of Cebu,
that's correct, Mr. President.
a fellow
I so move.
Cebuano.
I so move. With the permission of the body.
Any objection? Chair is done. Resolution is adopted, subject to style.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And Mr. President, I move that we consider proposed resolution number 569.
Any
And ask-
objection? Hearing none, consideration is in order. The Secretary will read the title of
Thank you,
the
Mr. President.
resolution without prejudice to inserting into the records the text of the said resolution.
Resolution expressing profound sympathy and sincere condolences of the Senate of the Philippines on the death of veteran actress Clarita Villarba Rivera, popularly known as Mila del Sol, and honoring her contribution in Philippine cinema.
Mr. President, I move that we adopt, subject to style, PS resolution number 569. And before we do that, Mr. President, may I request the authors to allow all members of the Senate be made co-author of this measure, Mr. President.
Yes, especially so that she is the grandmother of Congressman Tambunting.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, any objection? So noted. So recorded, I should say.
Thank you, Mr. President.
So, are you moving to adopt the resolution?
Yes, I so move. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Chair is done. The resolution is hereby adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Bonavilla is still on his way. He probably would like to give a sponsorship speech of the matter. Maybe you can recognize him later, or he can put it on the records of the
Yes,
Senate.
we can either insert it into the records or allow him to deliver it later,
Nadidinig na ako.
perhaps after.
Mr. President,
Yes, Senator Villar, go ahead.
I just want to manifest that I want to be a co-author of the resolution. If all of us will be co-author of the resolution.
Yes.
I would as well, Mr. President.
Yes, so recorded. The majority leader has already included all our names.
Thank you.
all your
Okay,
names.
thank you very much, Mr. President.
You're
And
welcome.
finally,
Thank you.
Mr. President, with your permission, we move that to adopt as well proposed Senate resolution number 568, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Consideration of 568 is in order. The Secretary will read the title of the resolution without prejudice to inserting into the records the text of the said resolution.
Resolution commending Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary Aneda Koji for his remarkable work as envoy of the Government of Japan to the Philippines, bolstering the bilateral relations and strategic partnership between the two countries.
Senator Angara.
Mr. President, before I move for
sige,
adoption,
sige.
I move
Later na
that
lang.
all
Concentrate.
members of the Senate, I move that all members of the Senate be made co-author. I know Ambassador Haneda was a friend to many. I know the minority floor leader was very close to him. and also members of the majority were very close to him. I myself became very close to him because of his support for the Bangsamoro Organic Law. He was a very active partner of the peace process in the BARM, or the Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao. And he would be sorely missed. He was an ambassador, Mr. President, without any air or without any, kung sa Tagalog pa, walang yabang po, Mr. President. Always inviting the senators, congressmen to his house for the best Japanese dinner. He always says it's the best Japanese dinner because his chef comes directly from Japan. And yes, Mr. President.
I agree. The ambassador really is a workaholic,
Yes.
and it's really I know for a fact that he really works hard because his handicap is very high.
I know. I heard he's a very good golfer, Mr. President. So I assume you were able to play a round of golf with him, so that's why you know this personally.
I see him around.
With that, Mr.
Nagtatrabaho kaya
President,
mataas ang handicap.
that's good. With that, Mr. President, with all members of the Senate be made co-authors, I move that we adopt Senate Resolution number 568. I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none, PS Resolution 568 is hereby adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, I move that we resume consideration of our budget, House Bill number 7727. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the budget is in order.
I move that we also take up the budget of the Department of Interior and Local Government and to sponsor our distinguished chairperson of the committee, no other than Senator Angara. May we recognize.
Senator Sani Angara is recognized and the chair yields to Senator Ping Lacson.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'd like to also mention that Secretary Anyo of the ILG is here with us, and as well as other officials. PNP Chief Sinas is also here.
Mr. President, we'd like to recognize our distinguished Senate President to lead the interpellation today, Senator Vicente Soto III.
The Senate President, Senator Vicente Tito Soto III, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the distinguished gentleman from the South explain his duties today? What is the budget of the DILG that includes the Philippine National Police?
I will always yield to my leader in the East, Your Honor. The budget of the DILG for 2021, Your Honor, is 244,309,000 pesos approximately.
For the Philippine National Police?
For the Philippine National Police, Your Honor, Mr. President, it is 190. Sorry, 191 billion approximately, Your Honor.
So,
Ano ba yung additional?
approximately 400 plus billion in total. Before I go into the meat of my concerns in the budget, because I am very much concerned about the legal assistance, program that we give the PNP. No, but before I do that, I would like to get the sense of the Philippine National Police on a certain issue that I will also ask PIDEA later on. That I would want to hear the response of the PNP. Mr. President, it has come to my attention that the current practice of the prosecution now is to require the PNP and PIDEA that the witnesses enumerated under Section 21 of Republic Act 10640 enumerated are media, elected public officials, representative from the prosecutor's office. This is the law that amended the Republic Act 9165, of which yours truly is the principal author, especially the creation of the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency. We have amended it and we have called it the SAD law, SAD law. The wisdom which I crafted the SAD law, Mr. President, well, they call it that because it's the Soto amendments to the anti-drug laws, RA 10640, to amend Section 21, which has always been the brunt of the problems of prosecution. We wanted to simplify the conduct of the physical inventory. Now, the law really, Mr. President, is simple to summarize. Let me take this opportunity so that the prosecutors of the land are summarized also on the contents. The witnesses enumerated under Section 21 are witnesses in the physical inventory and photography of the seized drugs. They are not witnesses in the conduct of the anti-drug operation. That is the misconception. Therefore, requiring these witnesses to be present during the conduct of the anti-drug operations, the buy-bust or implementation of search warrant, is misinterpreting the law. The SAD law, as we call it, as some of us call it, makes an emphatic directive, provided, however, that non-compliance of these requirements shall not render invalid or ineffective of the search as long as the integrity and the evidentiary value has been preserved. Now, we would like to take this opportunity that the officials of the Philippine National Police, no less than the PNP chief, is here. The PNP, my question is, were you consulted by the Department of Justice in any manner regarding this practice?
The Chief PNP is shaking his head, Mr. President, Your Honor.
So you were not. So in your actual implementation, do you think this practice is unrealistic, impractical, and disadvantageous to our law enforcers? The practice that they are misinterpreting, I mean.
The PNP chief agrees with your interpretation of the law, Your Honor, Mr. President, and he says these actors are really not supposed to be. Some actors are not really supposed to be present during the
Buy-bust.
actual, yes, the buy-bust, the actual operation,
Arrests, yes.
and but they are part of the when the evidence is already presented, Your Honor.
Correct. All right. That's clear for the Philippine National Police. And therefore, with these insights also, I will take it up and discuss the matter further with the Department of Justice. Okay. Thank you. With that out of the way, now
So on Friday, Your Honor, Friday is the budget of
On
the
Friday,
DOJ,
all
Your
right.
Honor.
the PNP Legal Service has been there for 28 years to provide legal aid to our PNP personnel. May I know the extent of the legal services being provided to our PNP personnel?
Your Honor, I was told that they only have 176 lawyers or legal officers assisting in cases where PNP personnel are involved, and there are over 290,000 cases, Your Honor. So it seemed these are just for illegal drugs cases, Your Honor. So may mga ibang kaso pa yun.
Now I see there is a reason for my next point after this. So how much is your current budget for this, for legal service? And what are your future projects for the service?
Your Honor, the regular fund for the legal assistance given is only 10 million. But the good news is the Senate augmented it by 68 million for 2020, Your Honor.
From last
I
year?
suspect from you, perhaps your and Senator Lacson and
That's probably from Senator Lacson, the former.
I would suspect. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly who made it, but
I'm sure.
Senator Lacson, I was told, is principal author.
So it is now 68.
And for 2021, there is 20, and perhaps given the arguments made by the good Senate President and our colleagues, perhaps there is openness to even increase that given the need, Your Honor.
From 68, it's down to 20 now?
Yes, Your Honor, because ang practice ho talaga ng DPM is hindi naman talaga they don't add the the congressional augmentations. They really remove it in the next year's NEP or expenditure program.
So do I take it that in the future projects you would like to hire more lawyers?
Yes, they're all nodding their head, Your Honor, when you mentioned hire more lawyers.
Yes, but I understand from the PNP chief, and I'm sure Senator Lacson is very much aware of this, that there are some lawyers who do not want to join the ranks because they don't want to be, they don't want to join the parade. Ayaw naka-uniforme ng mga abogado, ano?
Yes, I think you hit on something there, Your Honor, because they're saying some lawyers would not really want to receive the salary of a policeman, and given that they have studied 4 years of law and taken the bar, so they're suggesting that perhaps we could have separate items for these legal personnel, and they would be considered non-uniform personnel, Your Honor.
I heard that from Senator Lacson before. I'll leave it to him. I think he was interpolating thereafter.
Yes, Your
I'll
Honor.
leave that particular issue to Senator Lacson. The budget for the legal services, the legal, the more lawyers for the PNP and how to go about it. Let me just again move on to the mandatory continuing legal education, MCLE, that lawyers are mandated to undergo to keep abreast of new laws and cases. The distinguished gentleman from Aurora is very much aware of this. But does the PNP have a similar program for continuous training and education of PNP personnel?
Your Honor, for lawyers who serve under the PNP, they are required, they're not exempted from that legal requirement. But for police, I'm not sure this is the import of your question, Your Honor. But for
Yeah,
the police who are not lawyers, and if you're asking if there is an equivalent in terms of continuing legal education for them as policemen, there is none, Your Honor.
Yun. That is the point I would like to drive at. You hit it Your Honor, Mr. Chairman, through our presiding officer. So there is no budget in the PNP budget for continuing training and education program for our PNP personnel. Para bang ano ba, updating ba, upgrading or refresher? Parang ganon.
Wala po, ang sabi sa akin ho is sila mismo ang gumagastos. There is no institutional fund to shoulder these expenses. So it's the individual police officer who has to shoulder or bear the brunt of the expense should he choose to undergo further studies, Your Honor.
No, it's not just about the further studies, Your Honor.
The training, Your Honor.
Training and refresher education program. That is what I'm looking for. And if there is none in their budget, then we can probably discuss it with Your Honor and our presiding officer, Senator Lacson, later, if we can place something to that effect. Because I'm very much concerned, and I am, what is the proper word for this? Disturbed. I was disturbed, and I still am disturbed by the conduct of some PNP personnel that I saw in a social media clip, video clip. Perhaps this would be my last point, but I am indeed disturbed of the procedure that was done. Panoorin muna natin, and then I will tell you why I was disturbed.
Yes, Your Honor.
Let me show a video of a shooting incident recently in Dalahican, Cavite, which cost the life of the PNP Highway Patrol Group Master Sergeant Julius Arcalas. Please play it back. I'm sure the PNP has seen this, but for the sake of everybody who is monitoring. Let me add that they stopped. This is the Highway Patrol Group. They stopped a vehicle with no plates, no conduction sticker. And the driver and the passenger do not want to identify themselves.
ID na lang, sir. ID. Wala ka po tayong buwak sila. Ipanda ko lugas ko na sir. Kaya sa trabaho ng pagkakasya. Sir? Hindi namin sa kayo naharap sa wala matong tayo plaka, sir. Iba po, sir. Wala po kayong plaka, sir. Kapag lang po kayo plaka, wala po kayong plaka. Nag-isay na po, sir. Pakira na sa mga po. Ay, pa niyo naman po yun, sir. Pag isa, kahit yung isang tayo, hindi naman papakain naman. Diba, sir?
Sir, meron po kayong violation, sir. Meron. Hindi po kayo paparahin kung walang violation.
Wala po kahit lang, sir. Kahit ilan yung rito.
Wala po tayong plaka harapan likod, walang conduction. Wala rin po kayo makipakita ng RCR. Doon pa lang ko, sir. Dalawa na po ang violation natin. Impoundable na ho ang violation natin, sir. Nakaproblema ka.
there is a continuation after a few minutes. This is what happened. All right, Mr. President, forgive me for having to show that, especially the second part, but I had to. The reason I'm looking for some kind of a refresher course or training program for personnel for review is I find that in the first video, there were protocols that should have been followed. Ano, parang masyadong, I understand the point na dapat daw kasi magalang yung mga pulis natin. Correct. Especially kung traffic stop lang or violation. Okay na maging magalang, mabuti nga yun eh. As a matter of fact, nakikita ko nga yung mga iba, abusado eh. Kung murahin yung mga pulis, sinisigawan yung mga pulis eh. Mali eh. Because, walang plate number, walang conduction sticker, ayaw magbigay ng lisensya, ayaw magbigay ng ID, dapat doon, arestado antimano. Eh, sa Amerika yan, step out of the vehicle. Ganun kaagad yun eh. At tututukan ng barilan eh. Dapat yan, paglapit mo, walang conduction sticker, walang plate number, anti-carnapping kayo, paglapit din yun, nakahawak kayo eh. Para ipakita kaagad na ready kayo eh. Let me tell you an incident in Cleveland, Ohio, with my brother, Vic. Vic was driving an SUV which we borrowed from a fellow golfer. He was caught speeding. We were flagged down by a highway patrol. Speeding. So we had to stop. The officer approached us and asked my brother, Vic, who was driving the car, for his license. So he was giving his driver's license, and then the officer asked him who owns the car, if he owned the car. He said, no, I borrowed it from the owner. He made the mistake of saying that the owner is the one he borrowed it from was the owner. He borrowed it from Roger Santander, a Phil-Am who lived in Chicago but was with us in Cleveland, and asked for the registration. So I took out some papers from the glove compartment, gave it to the officer, which was the registration. The car was registered to another name, not Roger Santander, that my brother mentioned. Yeah, he immediately asked my brother to step out. He was holding his gun, and he made my brother stoop down into the hood and handcuffed him. And ganun eh. Hindi ba? Dito sa atin, sobra bait natin kuminsan. Okay yung magalang, okay yung mabait ka. Pero pag criminal na yung kausap mo, hindi pwedeng mabait. Dapat yun, nung ayaw magbigay ng lisensya, ayaw magbigay ng ID, under arrest na kagad. O detain. We're detaining you. Step out of the vehicle. Dapat ganun kagad eh. At yung isa, huwag mo nang bababa. Dapat may nakatutok na rin kagad sa kabila na magbababa. Anti-carnapping ito eh. Di naman ito traffic stop eh, o traffic police eh. That was what I was looking for. So hopefully, sa budget ng PNP, meron tayo itong refresher course on the procedures, the protocols. Di mo ba? Dapat ganun eh. So, what is the status of this incident? Why did they have to wait for that guy to come out with guns blazing and armed to the teeth? First, what is the status of the incident, Mr. President?
Your Honor, the driver of the vehicle is now in police custody, I was told, Your Honor.
The driver is in police custody.
Yes, Your Honor, but the other passenger was killed in the shootout with the police, and I think a policeman was wounded. No? Dead. Also, one policeman died. Also.
Oh, that was my concern. Oo eh.
Police major, Your Honor.
Tayo pa namatayan eh. Sino pa yung ika nga eh sisilbi ng batas, siya pa yung namatayan eh. Were the protocols followed? What does the chief PNP think? Was the protocols followed by the law enforcement units adequately to ensure their safety in the performance of their duty, Mr. President?
Your Honor, they are in agreement with you that perhaps that there could have been an improved protocol. In fact, in the first instance daw, yung hiningian po siya ng lisensya, etc., that was the correct protocol. But the moment the driver put up his window and refused to obey or answer the questions and obey the orders of the police officers, that should have been considered a hostile. What they said is
Correct.
a hostile act, Your Honor.
Correct. That's
And
what
they
I
should
mean.
have made the corresponding actions, Your Honor.
Correct. I heard in a radio interview a police officer talking about this, and he said that he suspects na ilang daw because they saw a Navy uniform hanging in the back of the car. Eh pagka naghang ba ako ng Army uniform sa likod ng kotse ko, hindi na ako pwedeng hulihin kahit na napaka-antindi ng mga violation ko, hindi lang basta traffic stop. Diba? We should be oriented to that effect. Like for example, in my case,
It should not have made a difference, Your Honor, is what
correct,
I'm saying. Your Honor.
correct, precisely.
Yeah.
You know, in my case, I have been stopped by the MMDA, sometimes the SLEX and NLEX police. a number of times for overspeeding. I always give my license. They just give it back. Ayaw naman akong huliin dahil alam yata nila yung Article 11 that we cannot be arrested for any violation which is punishable by 6 years and below. Ano? Pero I always give it eh. And senador naman ako eh. But kayo may uniforme lang ng Navy? Di ba? So I'm looking for this. Dapat i-orient natin yung mga pulis natin lagi na magalang tayo. Pero pagdating sa you are serving the law. Di ba? Dapat medyo forceful ka. Di
Yes,
ba?
they agree with you, Your Honor.
Correct.
With the
Thank
permission
you.
of the Senate President and the sponsor of the budget, may I just
Yes, please share with
Are
us your
we
wisdom.
no longer conducting regular TINEs? TINE, Mr. President, is troop information and education. We don't even need a refresher course for this because regularly, during our time at least, we conduct this regular troop information and education. And we take up this everyday
TI
TINE, troop
TINE.
information and education.
education. TI and E. Troop information education. Yan eh. That's what I'm looking for. Do we still have that?
It's just a different name, Your Honor. It's PIDE, BIDE, Police Information Dissemination Education, which is once a month. The police are grouped there and they give the information. And well, I guess yeah, it's a form of training, Your Honor. But once a month lang daw yun. So,
Thank you,
yun ata yung
Mr.
sinasabi
President.
ni,
So what do we have a budget for that? Do they have a budget for that?
No need for a budget for that, Mr. President.
No need.
It's a regular.
that's part of the regular budget, Mr. President.
All right.
Your Honor.
All right. So
And if I may add, Your Honor, they wanted to add also that for more specific or technical pursuits, like for investigation, they have specialized trainings, like for investigation, forensic, for criminal investigation, they have courses for that, Your Honor.
well, in this case, I expect them to come up with some kind of a better training for the anti-carnapping task force.
They will, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Kanino po nakapangalan yung ginamit na firearms nung suspects? Or
They were not
unlicensed?
licensed, Your Honor.
Unlicensed?
Unlicensed. All unlicensed firearms, Your Honor.
All right. So it is not also licensed to the wife who is a Navy officer?
No, Your Honor. No.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. President. I have no longer any questions. I just want to make sure that there is this TIE and E is now,
PID,
They call it another name now, Mr. President.
ano na ngayon to?
PIC, Police Information and Continuing Education, Your Honor.
Information.
Pero similar daw yun sa binanggit ni
PIC.
Senator Ping, former PNP chief.
PICE,
And Senator
PIC.
Opo.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our
Thank you,
Senate
Sergeant.
President and for his concern. And I think the lesson is well learned, Your Honor.
Mr. President, with your permission, I would like to intervene.
The minority leader is recognized.
Yes, Mr. President, this is in relation to the issue raised by the Senate President on the matter of the legal assistance to our members of our police force. First, let me make it clear that I am in favor of providing legal assistance to our police force, and for that matter, to any government employee who is brought before the ombudsman or the Sandigan Bayan on an issue related to his work, excluding, of course, certain types of cases like the anti-graft. But what I am bringing up this concern because there is a rule in the civil service which says that a government lawyer cannot represent a party if the other party is the government. And if applied to the PNP, this rule would say that the PNP lawyers cannot appear in behalf of the members of the police force, for example, in that incident that was just shown by the Senate President, hindi po pwede humarap ang abogado ng PNP to let's say to defend a member of the PNP force. First question, what is the practice in the PNP? Sino po ang nagbibigay ng serbisyong legal para po sa mga kasama natin sa polisiya na nasasampahan ng kaso? For example, in that video shown by the Senate President, if a member of the police force is charged for whatever reason, is charged by the other party, and clearly it was done in the performance of their duty, under the rules of the civil service, a member of the PNP legal office cannot represent that PNP officer who may be a defendant in a criminal case in that particular video shown by the Senate President. But what is the practice in fact?
Your Honor, I was told that the minority leader is correct about that civil service provision, but it applies in a administrative case where, let's say, there is an administrative case against a police officer. The police officer has to defend himself using his private means, Your Honor, and getting a private lawyer. But in cases where it is a criminal case against a police officer who is in the line of who is accused of something criminal in the line of duty, the PNP usually provides the legal assistance, Your Honor. That's what I'm told.
Is that found? Okay, so suppose pursuing that, Mr. Sponsor, suppose it is an anti-graft case. Will the PNP legal and in effect government funds be used to extend assistance to a PNP officer who is charged with graft before the Sandigan Bayan?
According to the chief PNP, they provide the option to the police officer. If he needs assistance, then it is made available to him, Your Honor.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think this matter should be.
Senator Lacson, Your Honor, Mr. President is
Mr.
raising his
President,
hand.
Mr. President, may I be recognized and to address the concern or the issue raised by the distinguished minority leader, I think there should be a distinction. If the case is to prosecute a person arrested by the PNP, then the legal officers or the lawyers of the PNP can assist the PNP personnel. It's a different matter altogether. If the PNP personnel is the respondent, I don't think the legal service of the PNP can render legal assistance to that police officer who is facing charges.
Okay, Mr. President, the senator from Cavite is correct because if it is the PNP officer who is pursuing, who is a prosecution witness, the legal service of the PNP can certainly assist him because that is in pursuit of the prosecution of the case, and therefore government funds can be used to prosecute that criminal case because the plaintiff is the people of the Philippines. Now, what if on the other hand, where the PNP personnel is the accused? My reading, and hope I'm not saying that this is the correct reading, but my reading of the rule is that you cannot use a PNP legal service because where the other party is the government, because the government funds are used. The good sponsor is saying that this applies only to administrative cases, I don't see that distinction being made. That's why I was asking what is the practice. But let me make it clear. We should re-examine this rule, especially when it gets to the civil service budget, because this is a civil service rule. Kaya kung minsan, takot na takot yung mga kawani sa pamahalaan to do their work, because if they get into trouble, sila rin ang nasasabit. And just to again give a concrete example, those charged by the public attorney's office, officials of the Department of Health, on the Dingvaxia controversy, these are career officials of the Department of Health, charged with homicide in something like 5 jurisdictions, because the public attorney's office used the residence of the parents of the child who died as the venue. And therefore, you have the DOH career people having to hire their own lawyers at their expense on a job, on a matter that they did in the performance of their job. I think this is not fair now, but we must have but that is why I am asking this from the PNP, because of the issue of the legal service being brought out by the Senate President. That's why we raised this question, because of the rule in the civil service. May I have the comment of the good sponsor of this issue?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, good Minority Leader. The Civil Service Commission's budget is up for consideration after the PNP. So perhaps I think you have made several good points, and perhaps there's a need to clarify what is the government policy on this issue of legal representation, whether it applies in all cases or whether it should apply only in the case where it is done in the regular course of duty, Your Honor. So I think these are things which must be threshed out carefully, Your Honor.
Yes. Okay. As I said, we will not pursue this any further in this budget, because indeed the issue should be brought up, for example, when we come to the budget of the civil service. But I think the civil service budget will no longer be debated on the floor because there are no questions asked. Is that my understanding from the chair? Is that a correct understanding, sir?
They are up next, Your Honor. So if you would want to interpolate, we can put you on the list.
The civil service?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good. Then we can raise that when we get to the civil service budget. Thank you very much, sir, and that's all for this on our part.
Yeah, we haven't yet. Yes, Your Honor. You're welcome, and we welcome your clarifications when the Civil Service Commission budget is called, Your Honor, Mr. President.
Majority Leader, the next in my list is the former Chief of the Philippine National Police. Senator Pambilo Lacson is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, with the permission of the distinguished sponsor.
Of course, to the former PNP chief and who also chaired our committee on public order previously.
Thank you, Mr. President. While I have some issues that concern the Office of the Secretary of the ILG, I will start my interpellation on the agency nearest to my heart. Wala na iba kundi yung Philippine National Police, Mr. President. Now, my first question is, what is the present personnel fill-up of the PNP, the BFP, and the BJMP?
For the PNP or Philippine National Police, Your Honor, the total manpower component is at 202,440 as of August 31, 2020, Your Honor.
And this would include uniform and non-uniform personnel, or just uniform personnel?
That's only uniformed personnel, Your Honor.
How about the Bureau of Fire Protection, Mr. President?
For the non-uniformed personnel, it's 12,041, just for the record, Your Honor. For the Bureau of Fire Protection or BFP, The actual personnel component is 31,286, Your Honor. And
Thank you.
we're getting the figure for the BJMP, the Bureau of Jails. For BJMP, Your Honor, it's 14,845 as of August 31, 2020.
And the present strength of the PNP correctly corresponds to the 1:500 police to population ratio.
Right now, it is 1:543, Your Honor, at that number we mentioned earlier.
1:540,
543, Your Honor.
543.
Opo.
Thank you, Mr. President. If we factor in the number of personnel due to retire next year, and those to be separated from the service for other reasons, no, probably based on historical data and other bases, what is your program of recruitment for next year to maintain the desirable personnel complement?
According to them, there will be 30,000 after retirement and the usual, the expected vacancies, Your Honor. There will be about 30,500 approximately unfilled positions, Your Honor.
But their
they were
program
filling
of
only
recruitment-
1,000 of those positions, Your Honor.
But the program of recruitment, at least for next year, will not be 30,000 plus.
Hindi po, 1,000. 1,000 lang po for next year, Your Honor.
Why is that? Why are you recruiting only 1,000 personnel? Yun lang yung capacity ninyo?
Your Honor, that's the only budget provided under the National Expenditure Program.
And assuming that you have the budget, how many personnel can you recruit for next year? Maximum.
Historically, Your Honor, the biggest they've hired is 7,000 to 8,000, and the cost of recruiting is at most 7,000 pesos. 4,000, sorry, I'm sorry. I correct myself, Your Honor. The cost of recruiting one PNP recruit is 4,700 approximately.
And that is based on a cost factor of 1.5.
Yes, Your Honor.
Kindly explain why 1.5? Why not 1.2 or 1.1 or 1?
Parang palugit lang ho yan.
Okay.
Parang palugit
So
lang daw.
anyway, I can hear GPNP devolved. So
it's the factor. Yeah,
Parang may-
Your
may
Honor,
safety-
I think you know more about these things than the sponsor. So I
May
apologize
safety
for
net.
for the
No,
lag
may-
in the answer.
may safety net na 0.5. Kung mag-recruit ng kailangan 100, kailangan 150 yung under consideration.
Yes, Your Honor. It's for easy.
Okay.
Sabi nila it's for easy computation. And,
Yes.
among other things, Your Honor.
And every warm body has a cost
Yes, Your Honor.
sa recruitment. How about training, Mr. President? What is the cost for training per personnel? Kasi recruitment is one thing, but training is another thing. and it entails another expense.
Your Honor, there are two types of training. The academic training, which is 6 months, that is 19,792 pesos per recruit, and there is the field training, which is also another 6 months, which is at a cost of 17,600 per recruit, Your Honor.
17,600 for the whole 6 months
Opo.
per
Opo.
personnel.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How about individual, assuming that the police recruits have already been enlisted, in the police service as a regular member, how much would they need for individual personal equipment? Per capita rin.
It's around 20,000 per recruit, Your Honor.
20,000 per recruit.
Opo.
That's for 1 year na.
For 1 year, yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And of course, kasama pa dyan yung additional salary, allowances, etc.
Yes, Your
etc.
Honor.
So, kasama naman sa computation yun, di ba? That's a separate item, ano?
Wala pa po yung nabanggit yung mga items. What
As yung PS, wala pa dito.
yung PS is
Separate.
meron po silang 15,229,000,000 approximately, Your Honor. This is for the unfilled positions, pero yung mga training wala pa po yun sa budget, Your Honor.
Yeah. So yung 15 billion for PS, that's only for the
Salary.
projected salary and allowance, salaries and allowances for the projected recruitment of 1,000 at for 30,000.
30,000 po yun.
So assuming that we will recruit or they will be able to recruit 7,000 or even 8,000. So anyway, madali na siguro computin, Mr. President. But again, another expense, another item would be MOE, per capita. Right now, and I know this because I was the one who introduced the amendment, they're at 1,395 pesos per personnel in terms of MOE.
Yes, Your Honor, 1,390, tama po.
1,390. So if we will multiply that, assuming na nakapag-recruit sila ng 7,000, we will multiply that by 7,000 to be added to the present per capita MOE of the entire police force.
They need around 26.6 million approximately, Your Honor.
Million
Opo.
for the additional personnel.
Opo.
Yeah. I read in the news that the new chief PNP will seriously implement the 1585 ratio in the distribution of personnel, logistics, and financial resources between headquarters and the field units. Is this directive being implemented as we speak, Mr. President?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so how does the PNP leadership monitor this? That indeed the resources are being distributed properly in accordance with the policy directive, and that the logistics and financial resources actually reach the smallest mammalia in the field, Mr. President.
Your Honor, I was told that from the Central Financial Office, they send the money directly. There is an ATM card for each police station chief, and he holds that card, and the money is given to him without mediation by any district or whatever other provincial official, Your Honor.
I asked that question, Mr. President, because I've been there, and I know that the police patolas of the world, or those pounding the beat in the streets, the intelligence operatives are practically the cannon fodder of the police force, and they deserve all the resources they need to be productive and without excuse to extort for their operations and other administrative needs. And that's a sound policy to really download resources to the lowest level of command, Mr. President. So I'd like to commend the PNP for strictly and seriously implementing the 1585 ratio and the distribution of resources, Mr. President.
They are thankful for your remarks, Your Honor.
Yeah. Another item is on the Quick Response Fund, yung QRF. Is there a budget for QRF sa PNP and even the Bureau of Fire Protection? Because these are the frontliners. Even during the COVID, the height of the COVID pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic.
Wala daw.
Wala. Why is that, Mr. President? Because I understand, when we reviewed the different GAAs, previous year's GAAs, 2016, meron silang QRF. I think 75 million for the PNP and another 75 million for the BFP.
Yeah, it was appropriated you're correct, Your Honor, in 2015, but it was never released according to the PNP.
And what seemed to be the problem? Why was the QRF not released to both? I suppose even the Bureau of Fire Protection, hindi rin na-release na 75 million in 2016?
According to the PNP, Your Honor, the requirements were quite stringent. I'm asking what specifically were those requirements, but they were not able to meet the requirements. Is what I was told, Your Honor.
So if we restore or if we propose to augment or amend the budget of the PNP and restore the QRF for the PNP and the BFP as well, how much would they need for next year?
Your Honor, for the PNP, they would need around 125 million. This covers both MOE and the capital outlay, Your Honor. And for BFP, they would need 75 million. So that's around 200 million total, Your Honor.
So from 2016 to date, how do they cope with the lack of funds for QRF? Saan nila kinukuha ngayon? Because they continuously respond to calamities. Just like in Taal, for example, I understand and I heard that at least 6 of their personnel got afflicted with some skin disease or sa lungs because of the sulfur.
Well, among others, they get it from the regular budget, and sometimes they make requests with the NDRIM-C. But matagal daw yung processing ng mga requests, Your Honor. So they would appreciate very much if the body were to augment these funds, Your Honor,
Yes.
as standby funds, Your Honor.
And of course, with your consent and the consent of our colleagues, Mr. President, I will introduce that amendment to restore the QRF specifically for the PNP and the BFP.
Yes, Your Honor, we think that's a good amendment, Your Honor.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President. So,
And His Honor has a great appreciation for the needs of the police and what actually happens on the ground, which this representation does not have, Your Honor.
okay, sa OSEC, okay, yesterday, while I was when I was interpolating on the proposed ALGU LGSF for 2021, I initiated the proposal to add another item. This is Disaster Rehabilitation and Reconstruction Assistance Program for LGUs. And I'd like to get the view of the Secretary of the DILG through the distinguished sponsor. Suppose we augment the budget by with another 20 billion pesos for that purpose. Are they prepared to submit the menu list or the list of LGUs hit hard by the three devastating typhoons and cyclones, Inta, Rolly, and Ulysses?
They would be
And-
ready, Your Honor. In fact, I'll place on record that the sponsor already, or the good gentleman from Cavite already mentioned it to Secretary Anyo of the DILG. And Secretary Anyo said they already have the framework for that. They have the mechanism, Your Honor. And as the information, they can provide that, Your Honor.
Yes, and they can just follow the process that they are adapting for the Barangay Development Program to sa NTF LCAP, di ba?
Yes, Your Honor. They are
And I understand that it is not even the DILG that will implement the projects as listed for the 822 barangays, all over the Philippines. Now, can you walk us through how this process will be implemented, Mr. President, and how the funds would flow down to the or straight to the 822 barangays, and how would the barangays implement those projects? Because I understand projects such as farm to market roads, bridges, even local roads, and even for some livelihood programs, Mr. President. So
Yes, Your Honor.
can we have an idea?
Yes,
Also
Your
for the education and enlightenment of some of our colleagues who have expressed reservations on the 16.4 billion peso appropriations for the NTF LCAP.
Certainly, Your Honor. We've been given a process flow, and we'd like to flash it on the screen as soon as feasible.
While waiting for the slide, Mr. President, I would just like to reiterate the call of Senator De La Rosa, another our colleague and another former chief PNP, na hindi po ito i-release para sa combat operation.
Yes,
No? Yung 16.4 is intended for development.
correct.
Kasi sa ISO, sa Internal Security Operations, meron kaming tinatawag na hold and develop. After consolidating, merong hold and develop. Ito na yung portion na yon. And what an interesting analogy that he used yesterday. I won't repeat it anymore.
Yes, Your Honor. Tama po. We agree with the statement.
So if the slide is ready, can you just walk us through, Mr. President? Just for our enlightenment.
Well, while we're waiting, if it's all right, I think they're working out the technical stage. But there are 6 stages involved, Your Honor. The first is the project identification and submission. The second stage is the project review. The third is the project list consolidation. The fourth is the budget review and funds. The fifth is the budget utilization and project implementation. And the sixth is the project monitoring and evaluation. I'll say a little bit, if it's all right, about each stage, Your Honor. At the first stage is the project identification and submission stage, where the eligible LGU barangay undergoes series of issues identification, needs-based assessments, and solution-seeking dialogues through a program which is LGU-led, a community consultation at the barangay level. And the inputs identified during this consultation process is incorporated in the Barangay Development Plan. The Barangay Development Plan identifies priority programs and projects which will be funded in the Barangay Development Program for fiscal year 2021, or the GAP, which we are currently considering at present, Your Honor. And also part of this is the local government unit, or LGU barangays, submit the complete documents to the DILG field offices through the Municipal Local Government Operations Officers, or MLGOOs, for initial review and validation. That, Your Honor, is the first stage. The second stage is the project review, where the DILG regional and provincial offices review all the documents, including but not limited to the completeness of the documents, the compliance to the requirements of the guidelines, the budget cap and project menu, which we have been discussing in the past days, the project viability, the project standards set by the concerned sectoral agencies. And here also under the project review stage, the DILG regional offices shall submit the list of projects to the EO70 localization PMO in the DILG central office, and the latter consolidates the list of projects, Your Honor. This leads to the third stage, as flashed on the screen. This is the project list endorsement or consolidation stage, where the DILG central office endorses the lists of projects to the Department of Budget for the release of the funds. This leads to the fourth stage, Your Honor, which is the budget review and fund release stage. In this stage, it is the DBM, after its budget review and the review of all the documentary requirements submitted, releases the funds to the BTR or the Bureau of Treasury. And upon receipt of the notice of funds release from the DBM, the BTR prepares the notice of funds release and releases the funds directly to the implementing LGUs, Your Honor. And that leads to the fifth stage, which is the budget utilization and project implementation phase, where disbursement and utilization by the implementing LGUs is subjected to the pertinent provisions of the Procurement Act and its implementing rules and regulations, and any policies that are issued by the GPPB or the Government Procurement Policy Board, and any relevant budgeting and auditing regulations, Your Honor. And also part of this fifth budget utilization and project implementation stage is to hold the LGUs accountable for the overall implementation of the projects. The LGUs must ensure that the design, plans, specifications, and construction of projects are in accordance with national government standards and within the range of costs and project duration of similar projects being implemented by the national government agencies within the same localities, Your Honor. This leads in turn to the sixth and final stage, which is the project monitoring and evaluation stage, Your Honor. And here it's the DILG, which leads the monitoring of the implementation of projects under the Barangay Development Plan or BDP. And here the DILG is responsible for the project monitoring and the actual project implementation. Duly accredited civil society organizations should actively participate in the implementation by way of serving as an observer in the procurement process, the Municipal Development Council project monitoring, and third-party monitoring and evaluation. Citizens will play a critical role in the monitoring and evaluation of the projects with the use of community scorecards that focus on social accountability to augment the audits being done by the COA or Commission on Audit. This hopefully will ensure that the projects create a real impact in the communities, Your Honor. And the DILG also here consolidates all reports and submits to both houses of Congress and to the Office of the President through the NTF-LCAC, Your Honor. So that in sum is the six stages involved, and the DILG is involved in most of them, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. President. And the same template can easily be applied to the proposed amendment that I mentioned earlier in order to assist the LGUs hit by the three cyclones, Mr. President.
Yes, Your Honor.
With, of course, some slight modifications or adjustments.
Yes, Your Honor.
But it is not that simple because there is in Republic Act 10121, yung Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act of 2010, na kailangan meron tayong, by the way, before that, what is the status of the local disaster risk reduction and management office in locally, Mr. President, in all the provinces? Existing po yan.
Your Honor, I move that are using all the total number of LGUs. 1,279 are considered functional by the department. This is about approximately a 75% rate, including 76 provinces, 121 cities, 1,082 municipalities. And for the record, Your Honor, the criteria for functionality is number one, organizational structure. Number two, financial management of the 5% disaster risk and reduction management funds. Third is compliance to the 70-30 allocation under the law. Fourth are the plantilla requirements. Fifth is the DRRM, or Disaster Risk Reduction Management Plan. And sixth is the prepositioning of goods, Your Honor. Those are the criteria for functionality, which results in the 75% approximate functional rates of LDRRMOs.
How about at the barangay level, Mr. President? How many out of the 42,046 barangays in the country have their BDRRMC, or yung Barangay Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council? Of course, my particular concern, immediate concern, is those areas hit by the typhoons.
They don't have the data at present, Your Honor, but they say the municipalities have the data for their barangays, and they can submit that data to you, Your Honor.
Because as I mentioned earlier, in Section 12 ng 10121, ang nakalagay dito yung paragraph A, there shall be established an LDRRMO in every province, city, and municipality, and a barangay BDRRMC in every barangay, which shall be responsible for setting the direction, development, implementation, and coordination of disaster risk management programs within their territorial jurisdiction. Now, if and when, and knock on wood, if and when we manage to haggle for the augmentation of 20 billion pesos to the to those LGUs hit by the typhoons, dapat alam din natin kung paano sila gagawa ng rehabilitation and reconstruction plan through their LDRMO, and of course how they can initially make their assessment, yung tinatawag na PDNA, post-disaster needs assessment, because these are requirements. And without the approval of the NDRRMC, and that's contained in my proposed special provision to cover the third item under the ALGU LGSF, Mr. President. Kailangan ready sila to submit their own rehabilitation and reconstruction plan for approval of the NDRMC.
Yes, Your Honor.
And anyway, the Secretary of the ILG, are you co-chair? He is co-chair of the NDRMC. Vice Chair.
Vice Chair daw po siya.
So at least he can help facilitate the flow of funds, the downloading of funds to those areas that urgently need those funds if and when it is carried in the final version of the GAA, Mr. President.
Yes, Your Honor.
So that's all that I will have to take up on the budget of the DILG, the PNP, BJMP, and the BFP. And again, I'd like to thank the distinguished sponsor for his patience and high tolerance sa mga repetitive questions and issues that we are raising. Thank you again, Mr. President.
Just a friendly reminder, don't forget the amendments that we will propose for the legal services.
Yes, certainly.
And the lawyers.
Certainly,
The
Mr.
lawyers.
President.
Yeah, Mr. President, I had an early discussion with the GPNP. Ang problema nila yung salary, yung entry level. Secretary Myra, for example, while I was sitting in your in the rostrum kanina, sabi niya she wanted to be enlisted, but she doesn't want to wear the uniform. Sabi ko, problema mo, Sec Myra, mababa yung salary level. Pagpasok mo ng PNP at willing ka mag-uniforme, kapitan ka na agad, Captain Villarica ka na. Kasi lawyer, legal service. The problem is, kung ayaw mag-uniforme, napakababa ng salary level, yung entry level. So, the Chief NP is requesting for a legislation in this regard. Because I understand we already did this to the PAW and the DOJ. Kinasa natin yung salary grade ng entry level ng mga lawyers sa PAW and DOJ. And they also want, and it necessitates legislation, Mr. President. We cannot do it by mere special provision in the GAA.
So that means amendment to the PNP law or the SSL?
Probably the PNP law, Mr. President. We can amend the PNP law to introduce that amendment so they can recruit more lawyers, more doctors, more chemists. Kasi ito yung problema nila. I understand you only have how many chemists right now? $125 to attend to how many cases? 300,000 cases. So you can just imagine, Mr. President, sa court hearings pa lang, ubos na yung oras nila. At kung hindi sila maka-attend, contempt ang aabutin nila sa court. So this is the predicament that the PNP is in right now, Mr. President. And I promise the Chief PNP that at our end, we'll do our part to introduce that legislation. Thank you, Mr. President,
Very
and
good.
Thank you, distinguished sponsor.
Thank you also.
Thank you, Mr. President, and we assure the body and the presiding officer and the very astute vice chair in charge of and the former chair of the PNP, former head of the PNP, that we will seriously consider and accept their very good amendments and suggestions, Your Honor. And we thank Senator Lacson for always caring for that institution that he used to head, Your Honor. Thank you very much, sir.
By the way, Your Honor, please accept my apologies. I wrongly addressed you by calling you from the south. You are from the west, I understand.
It's all right, Your Honor. I came from the south too at some point.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next in line to ask, interpolate the budget of the Department of Local Government is Senator Francis Kiko Pangilinan, if he's online, Mr. President.
Senator Francis Pangilinan is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, President. Thank you, Majority Leader. May we know if the good sponsor is willing to yield to a few questions?
Yes, most willing to our good colleague from Pampanga and Cavite, Your Honor.
Thank you. I think you're from the south, southern Luzon and Mimaropa, not Mimaropa, Calbar Zone.
Well, we used to be part of Calabarzon, then we were transferred to Central Luzon, Your Honor. So
Yes,
we're
that's
like
right.
a dual citizen in effect, in a way.
So, but that is correct. You are in the west of western part of Luzon. Thank you, thank you. We understand, Mr. President, distinguished chair, that the contact tracing efforts of our COVID response is lodged with the Department of Interior and Local Government. Is that not right?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Yes, and how much was the total appropriation since Bayanihan 1 and 2 that was allocated for contact tracing?
Wala pong nakalodge sa Bayanihan 1, but for Bayanihan 2, there is 5 billion which the Senate and Congress appropriated for contact tracing, Your Honor.
Yes, thank you. May we know, pursuant to Bayanihan 2, and based on the public statements of the good secretary, that they are in need of at least 50,000 contact tracers. Is this not right?
Bigay nyo na, boss. Mabilis. Thank you. Ang goal, no? That's correct, Your Honor.
And in fact, the good secretary mentioned in a press statement, or at least when he was interviewed, that the contact tracing intervention will be the game changer. That is correct.
Yes, he's nodding his head, Your Honor.
Yes. And as earlier pointed out, under Bayanihan 2, 5 billion was appropriated to finance the hiring of these 50,000 contact tracers, which shall include, but not limited to, the following: recruitment, training, compensation, monitoring, logistics, and operational expense. May we know, can we have an update on the status of hiring and training of the 50,000 contact tracers? How many have been hired? Are these all fresh hires, or are they hired from current staff?
As of October 12, 2020, Your Honor, the department has hired a total of 30,918 of the proposed 50,000 quota for contact tracers. I'm still soliciting whether they are. I'm sorry, Your Honor. I have just received more updated information. They have hired 46,338 contact tracers as we speak, Your Honor, leaving a balance of 3,662. Are they new hires?
And are they new hires or a combination of new hires and training?
They're all new hires, Your Honor.
Was there an effort to integrate or at least absorb, perhaps, in these new hires, our barangay health workers? Because I asked this good sponsor because the barangay health workers who know the communities that they work in, the villages, the streets, are not given compensation, regular compensation by government. They do have a pittance of an allowance.
Yes,
so
they have included barangay health workers, and you're correct in your assertion, Your Honor, that they are knowledgeable about the needs of the communities that they serve, Your Honor.
and how much is the compensation of the 46,338 contact tracers?
18,714. Each contact tracer, Your Honor, receives a monthly or will receive a monthly salary of 18,714 pesos, 18,714, plus a 5% premium of their monthly pay, which is around 935 pesos. And they shall be deployed for 4 months, Your Honor, under that bayanihan to appropriation.
There were some reports about delayed payment of compensation. Has this been addressed? Are they receiving the 18,000 in a timely fashion?
All the amounts have been downloaded to the regions, Your Honor, but there may have been some delays in the processing because of some documentary requirements were not completed in certain cases, Your Honor.
So this 18,000 pesos plus 935 pesos is a monthly compensation package for contact tracers for a period of 4 months. I think this too is important in terms of its full implementation, and of course the compensation is made available immediately because it also addresses the challenge of unemployment at this point. So this is like a cash for work program, for lack of a better term, knowing that millions of our kababayans are jobless. Is that not right?
That is correct, Your Honor. We agree with you 100%.
Thank you. How are these contact tracers allocated? In terms of region, is it dependent on how do they execute this? Dependent on the number of cases, the need? How is this implemented?
Your Honor, there were a number of considerations in the allocating the quota of contact tracers. Number one was population. They tried to meet the ratio of one contact tracer for every 800 Filipinos. Two is the existing number of contact tracers as an augmentation, because I think the local governments also have contact tracers. The third is the prevailing situation or the prevalence of cases on the ground in the localities, Your Honor. And the fourth is the actual recommendation from the regional directors of the department, the DILG, Your Honor.
Yes. And of these 46,338 who have been hired, they all have been trained at this point. Is that correct? And who trains them?
It is as to training, it is the provincial offices who train them. Of the 46,338, 44,697 have been trained, Your Honor. And I think the remainder would be undergoing training as we speak, Your Honor.
And when you say provincial office, is this the provincial government?
It is a joint undertaking of the DILG provincial office, as they do it also with the LGUs, Your Honor.
I see. Earlier, we said, and he was quoted, the secretary was quoted, that they are set to hire at least 50,000. What is the universe of contact tracing requirements? Is 50,000 sufficient? Must we add more?
The universe is around 250,000, I was told, Your Honor. And that is sufficient in the view of the department because they calculate around 130,000 would be needed. And these 200,000 non-DILG hires are working with the local government units, Your Honor.
Okay. Is former PNP Director General and now Mayor Benji Magalong, is he still the contact tracing SAR of the IATF?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. He mentioned that he recommended one patient to 37 close contact ratio set. In other words, for every patient who has been tested as positive for COVID, contact tracing will be up to 37 people. Are our contact tracers meeting this recommended ratio? If they are good, if they are not, what is the average number of contact traced? Because I understand, Mr. Good Sponsor, Mr. President, I think 3 weeks or a month into the launch of the contact tracing efforts, Mayor Magalong was quoted as saying that the ratio increased from 1:4 to 1:5. But obviously, and he said that was not enough because his benchmark is 1:37.
The 1:37 is an ideal, Your Honor, and the definition of close contact is they have spent 15 minutes, minimum 15 minutes, and were less than 1 meter from the infected person. So in practice, they don't always meet it, Your Honor. Sometimes it's as low as 15, sometimes it's in the 20s, Your Honor. But they try to ensure that even those who are not considered close contacts are also undergo the safety precautions.
Yes, because 15 to 20. So, which means if they wish to reach the 37 ratio, which was earlier set as the ideal, will they be needing more contact tracers to reach the ideal? I say this because, well, my understanding is unless we bring down the spread of the disease and, God forbid, something like what has happened to Europe will happen to us, that there will be a sudden, huge spike in the increase in COVID cases, then there will naturally, in a worst case scenario, demand greater contact tracing.
In terms of numbers, Your Honor, perhaps we don't need any more warm bodies on the ground, but they are saying they're trying to improve to meet that ideal ratio by deeper interaction with the community, greater investigation, in order to meet that ideal ratio. And you're correct that we should learn from what has happened in Europe, where I don't know if it's a second or a third wave, but definitely there is a spate of lockdowns as a result of the greater spike in the COVID cases when they lowered or they decreased or relaxed their quarantine regulations, Your Honor.
Yes. In a sense, then, they feel that there is enough warm bodies in the ground that we have been able to effectively, by and large, do contact tracing as a means of being able to manage and spread the disease, manage the spread of the disease.
They admit that they can be more effective, Your Honor. That's why they're working on the meeting the ideal ratios, which you mentioned. But in terms of the warm bodies, I think they feel they already have those, and it's a matter of really increasing their effectivity and of their efforts, Your Honor.
Just to clarify, because you mentioned earlier the figure 130,000. This is the total number of contact tracers. Is that not right? On top of this is 50,000 plus other contact tracers already mobilized. Is that correct? Or is the total number of contact tracers pegged at 46,358?
That means the 1:800 ratio, Your Honor. If there are 108 million Filipinos, they are saying 130,000 contact tracers meets the 1:800 ratio, Your Honor.
Yes, and how many do we have?
According to them, we have close to 250,000 because the local governments have their own contact
Combined.
tracers also.
Yes,
Yes, combined, Your Honor, with the 46,000 of the department and then the those hired by local governments.
I think Senator, the minority leader, has some questions on this point.
Just on that point, can we clarify? I get confused. Yes, I noted the statement of the good sponsor that according to the DOH and WHO, the ideal ratio should be one contact person, tracer, for every 800 people. And if we are 110 million Filipinos, that's roughly 137,000, or roughly, just around 130, as mentioned by the good sponsor. We just be clarified, what is this 1 to 37, one contact tracer for every 37 persons mentioned by Senator Pangilinan?
Just to clarify, that is one patient, COVID positive patient. The 37 would be those who are to be traced. I think that is my understanding. As far as 37, depending on the case.
In other words, for every one positive, the assumption is we must contact trace about 27 or 37 individuals. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor. 37, but that is they make the qualification that this is an urban ratio. For rural, it's where I think there's less density and less close contacts. It's 1:30 close contacts, Your Honor. So that is a ratio. That is a ratio based, I think, on experience, Your Honor. So
yes. So just for purposes of the budget, we can use as a basis the WHO ratio of 1 for every 800 population.
Yes.
One tracer for every 800.
Yes,
which
yes,
brings
Your Honor.
130 contract tracers that we must fund. Is that the correct understanding, sir?
Well, we don't need to fund all of the contact tracers because the local governments have they have exceeded the recommended number of contact tracers. So if you combine it, of course, there's no harm in perhaps exceeding that ratio because that is a recommended minimum, Your Honor. So
as we talk today, Mr. Chairman, how many contact tracers do we have? both local and national.
Approximate. 257. Around 257,000 across the country, Your Honor.
257,000 contract tracers.
Yeah. Pero hindi kayo nag-
So we have filled up the needed ratio.
What is the ratio of that? You have to divide.
In fact, exceeds it.
Divide 108 million by 57,000. It is 1:420 if at the moment, Your Honor. So we are compliant with the WHO minimum or recommended ratio, Your Honor.
Well, anyway, because if we have sufficient number of contact tracers sufficiently trained, we should be able to easily address the COVID issue, because that is we have three T's: testing, tracing, and treatment. If we have 250,000 all over both from the national and local, we should have an effective tracing mechanism and should be able to prevent the spread, because we are able to effectively identify and locate the contaminated person. In Taiwan and in Thailand, this is how they achieved, and even Tokyo, this is how they are able to achieve success in their effort, because they have a very good and sufficient contact tracing personnel, which would point out to where the people who had contact are located. I'm sorry, but the statement that 257,000 contact tracers are on board is something that is a little difficult that has to be is a number that can be challenged if we look at how our lack of success in combating the spread of the virus. We have the second highest infection in Southeast Asia, next only to Indonesia. And I think per 1,000 or something population, we have the highest. But in any case, let us leave it at that. That belongs to. But now, the 250,000, I'm sorry to say, is something that can be challenged, Mr. Sponsor. And with that, I will yield the floor. I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, Senator Pangilinan. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. We thank the Minority Leader for his remarks, and the department acknowledges that there is room for improvement. And of course, the Minority Leader is correct in citing the examples of the certain countries who have gotten the virus under control. And the encouraging thing is the numbers, I think, are going down, Your Honor. But it is only the tracing that is with the DILG, the testing that's with the DOH, and they have to improve, I guess, the effectivity of the tracing, the effectivity of the testing. The testing must be in real time in order for the tracing to be also in real time. So it's quite a complex phenomena, Your Honor, and we acknowledge the import of the Minority Leader's remarks, Mr. President.
Thank you. If I may continue, thank you to the Minority Leader. On that note, I wish to go to the aspect of capacity of the local governments, because if you will recall, the contact tracing SAR, Mayor Magalong said, if I'm not mistaken, this was in July, he sent out emails to local governments to check on the capacity of local governments for contact tracing. And at that time, of the over 1,500 LGUs, about 400 responded, and of those 400, 0.6% were capacitated for contact tracing. Of course, this was July. Do we still have, do we have the data as to whether or not this has improved? I would assume that as contact tracing SAR he would have been terribly disappointed or immensely disappointed at the 0.6% of the 400 LGUs and that something would be done about it. Do we have a benchmark? If that was the benchmark then, or the situation then, I assume it has improved, and if it has, where are we now in terms of LGUs being capacitated for contact tracing?
Yes, begging your indulgence, Your Honor, there is a bit of a small powwow here between the Secretary and some of his staff in order to come up with an accurate figure to respond. Just to clarify the question of the good gentleman, the Senate Chair on the constitutional amendments, he's asking if we have improved and what is the figure comparable to the one he cited of 0.6.
Yes,
Your Honor, is that what?
Yes. This was cited in July by
Okay,
the contact tracing SAR.
0.6 of yeah.
Of 400 plus LGUs.
They're saying it's around 55% at present, Your Honor. Obviously, with a view to improving in the coming days and weeks.
And that is probably one of the reasons why, as pointed out earlier by Senator Dillon, that you may have 260,000 contact tracers, but if only 55% of your LGUs are capacitated to address contact tracing, then the contact tracing efforts in these 45% of the LGUs must then be addressed.
100. That is 100% correct, Your Honor. It is. I think no one is saying it is a perfect system as we speak, and I guess the important thing, Your Honor, is that we're improving every moment and every day.
Because the key to contact tracing, and I'm sure you would know, as you pointed out during the debates of the Bayanihan too, you were called 30 days later, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, Your Honor.
And that's a little too little too late, to say the least, in terms of being able to trace you. And so if 55% of your LGUs are capacitated and the remaining 45% are not, then in these LGUs lacking capacity, you will have COVID positive patients and their interaction with the rest of the community lacking in identification, and therefore will not help in bringing down the spread, because you do have to trace these individuals and ensure that they go through the right protocols, whether it's a severe infection or a mild infection. They still have to do quarantining and the wearing of masks, among others.
Yes, Your Honor. I confirm what you said, and in my case, it was the early days of the pandemic. I contracted it in sometime in late March, early April, and I would like to clarify that the DOH was at the time there was no designated contact tracer. I believe we were still in the early days, and so the LGU was quick to contact me, the barangay as well as the city. But the DOH was the one who called me 30 days after I had contracted or recovered already from COVID. So nonetheless, I appreciate the call to the kinakamusta po ako. But I guess one of the learnings is really we have to improve. The time is crucial, Your Honor. Each moment, each hour, each day is crucial when it comes to testing and tracing, Your
Yes.
Honor.
With your manifestation, good sponsor, precisely, and based on the data, the LGU that contacted you was probably at that time the part of the 0.6% who were capacitated. In other words, they were able to respond in terms of contact tracing. Then, now we have 55% of 100%. So 45% are not capacitated, and that's where that's a huge gap in terms of contact tracing efforts. Also because it's the DILG that is conducting it, and it's relying precisely on the local governments to be able to effectively contact trace. Is that not right?
That's correct, Your Honor, and the Secretary is telling me they're definitely trying to improve, but they were practical in their approach in the sense that of the 55% who were capacitated, 55% of LGUs were capacitated. They focused on the cases or on the localities or LGUs where there were a significant number of cases. So, kumbaga yung 45% na hindi pa fully capacitated, wala naman masyadong kaso doon. So, I guess these are the far-flung areas where there is little migration and little chance or possibility of contagion. But nonetheless, the department takes your remarks very well, and they are really trying to ramp it up to 100% and to meet the 1:37 ratio you mentioned earlier.
So actually, that was my next question. So they intend to capacitate at the level of 100%.
Yes, Your Honor.
And may we know, do they have a working deadline to be able to achieve this? Because again, you know, we cannot let our guard down. A European second or third wave is currently crippling them, and we don't. Assuming something like that happens, we should be prepared.
Yes, Your Honor. We agree with you in that sense. We should not wait to be hit by the virus, and they're saying they feel they can reach 100% in a month's time, Your Honor.
Oh, that's great, because as pointed out earlier by Senator Drilon, you have 257,000 contact tracers. If they are all capacitated, then we should be able to now focus on treatment and proper isolation and proper quarantining of those contact traced. That I think also is another area, but that is not area that needs to be improved. The isolation centers, but this is not, I understand this is not under the DILG. Is that right?
You are correct, Your Honor. It's really the tracing that is under them. I think the construction of the isolation centers is a shared responsibility of both the LGUs as well as the national government. I think it's the DPWH who constructs the quarantine centers, Your Honor.
Okay, and just another point. Once they have contact traced, identified positive patients from those contact traced, how does it work? Do they turn it over to the DOH or to the local government? Because this is where treatment now comes in. We want to ensure that the process is seamless. And therefore, all those who have been subjected to contact tracing will then be subjected to the necessary treatment, quarantining or isolation. One without the other.
The process is immediately to quarantine that person and to schedule a testing, Your Honor, to eliminate the possibility of infection of other people, and they work jointly with the other agencies in this respect, Your Honor.
So a positive person will then be quarantined, and who does the quarantine? I mean, who monitors or implements and checks the quarantining is actually implemented? The LGU, the DOH.
It's a home quarantine if they are still awaiting the results, Your Honor. But if they have been identified as a close contact, and then once they get the result and it is a positive result, then they are isolated, Your Honor.
And this is, I would understand this would
It's
be
already the DOH, Your Honor. I'm sorry, pahabol lang. It's the DOH who is in charge once they are in isolation, Your Honor.
But the local governments in a number of areas actually provide support. Is that not right? In terms of
Yes,
testing?
certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly, because health has been devolved and the DOH doesn't really have that many boots on the ground. You're correct, Your Honor.
Yes. So that would be the other, the next step. After contact tracing, this will be passed on to the DOH and the LGU, who then will address the necessary treatment protocols, whether it be self-home quarantine or isolation, and this will be with the DOH primarily in coordination with the specific local governments. I must say that one of our members of our staff at home, the sister got COVID, and she's from a resident of Taguig, and immediately the local government stepped in and had the entire household tested. So I see that, and we would like to thank Mayor Lino Cayetano and the response for Senator Pia, because we raised this with their local government. So in Taguig, the response was immediate, and we'd like to see that in all other local governments. In that regard, does the DILG play any role, support role in the responses of the local governments concerned?
They are monitoring all of these processes you mentioned, Your Honor. In fact, there's a mention of a task force for every municipality and province, where the national government, that task force is meant to integrate the actions and the information on the ground, Your Honor. So
Yes.
kung may ganong nag-test na positive ulit dun sa close contacts, that information is shared by the task force by the municipal task force, with the provincial task force. That way, there is instant sharing of information with the national government agencies, kasama na po yung DOH, and of course the DILG, as well as the local governments, para mabilis po.
Yes, thank you. Earlier the minority leader mentioned Japan. In fact, I was reading an article, and then I also saw it on television. They're actually, they are in the process of making a decision as to replace this 14-day quarantine, but to strengthen contact tracing as well as immediate isolation and or quarantining post arrival of visitors from out of the country. In other words, talagang they will be relying, instead of the 14-day mandatory quarantine, they will rely heavily on contact tracing, and it is an app-based contact tracing. Is the DILG using a particular app in order to be able to enhance the capacity of contact tracers?
I was told, Mr. President, that, Your Honor, that there is an IATF resolution number 45 dated June 10 of this year, where the IATF reaffirms its policy on maximizing the use of Stay Safe PH app, which recognizes the need to continue the efforts of contact tracing. Agreements have been made by the IATF in terms of the use and management of the Stay Safe application to further strengthen compliance with cybersecurity, data privacy, and confidentiality laws, as recommended by both the DICT and the National Privacy Commission, Your Honor.
So does that mean that the contact tracers are using the Stay Safe app? Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Has it been effective?
It's used in conjunction with more traditional techniques, Your Honor. I suppose
SMS.
manual techniques where they talk, they ask, they call up people and then inquire. So they're saying it is effective, Your Honor.
Yes. Okay. On the same point, but this time the 5 billion pesos appropriation for contact tracing, I understand. Once Bayanihan 2 expires in December, but it appears that obviously contact tracing will still be needed after December. Has the DILG looked into this? will there be money available for contact tracing, sustained and continuous contact tracing after Bayanihan 2 expires?
Well, the gentleman is correct. Technically, there is no budget for that. But what the DILG hopes is that they have created that ecosystem by training the LGUs and helping them, hoping that they will keep these contact tracers on their funding payroll and if needed, and so that that ecosystem is preserved going forward, Your Honor.
Yes, and that's my last point on this subject, Mr. Good Sponsor. This is only for 4 months, and the budget is 5 billion. If we will need more contact tracing next year, because the virus will not be gone by the end of the year, we all know that. Is there a way we can augment the budget and make sure that contact tracing is not derailed because of lack of funding support?
Well, they are saying one official here mentioned Bayanihan 3, but since we are discussing the 2021 budget, I think they're willing. They would be happy if Congress would appropriate funds for that purpose, Your Honor.
Well, that's why, as chairman of the Committee on Finance, I will throw the question to you. Would you consider, and if and where will we get it? Because obviously, as I said earlier, contact tracing. I mean, the virus is not going to go away after the end of December. It will still be around January, February, and therefore contact tracing is a continuing necessity. But there is no fund.
Yes, Your Honor. I would discuss it with perhaps the DOH and the DILG jointly and the IATF, and
Yes.
if they feel that the current appropriations levels are insufficient, then perhaps we would consider that. And of course, as you mentioned, it's always a question of where do we get the
Right.
funding, because our role here is mainly realignment, since we are not allowed to increase the total appropriation levels of the General Appropriations Act, Your Honor. So I think I cannot give a definitive answer at this stage, Your Honor. I think it needs further studying, Your Honor.
I will probably adopt the manifestation yesterday of the majority leader that kung wala ng pagkukunan ng pondo para sa COVID at baka pwedeng kunin mula dun sa budget for the anti-insurgency. He said a portion can be allocated. With that, Mr. President, I think my time is if there is still time later on after the other senators have asked their questions, maybe I will ask a few more. But at this time, Mr. President, I will give the floor to our other colleagues. Thank you again, distinguished sponsor, for the opportunity to be able to raise these questions. We do hope that we strengthen further our contact tracing efforts, because that is key in being able to manage the spread of the disease. Taiwan, Thailand, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Myanmar have all been able to bring down the spread of the COVID. There's no reason why we should not. And one major factor precisely is an effective implementation of contact tracing, and then, of course, treatment. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. We can do this, learn lessons from these other countries, and we will be able to bring down the spread and effectively manage the spread of this illness, this disease, and finally open up our economy, and the confidence in the economy will come back. When they see the numbers being, 50 a day, 20 a day, spread from the 2,000, 1,000 plus, that will create a huge how do you call it, regaining of confidence from all sectors of the country. Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity. Thank you, Majority Leader. Thank you, distinguished sponsor. And thank you to the Secretary of the Interior and Local Government and the entire DILG and PNP present there in the hearing. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'd like to thank the distinguished gentleman from Pampanga and Cavite for his very searching and very timely questions. And we agree with him that confidence is key, and the department is a key cog moving forward. But from what I've heard today in reply to his answers, I think the department is doing all it can and improving in its response. So thank you, distinguished gentleman. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority
Mr.
Leader.
President, may
Thank you
I
also to-
request a liquidity break of just 1 minute, Your Honor?
Would you like to continue the break instead? It's already 10:22.
It's up to we will yield to
Majority
the
Leader, we can
Yeah.
resume.
Well, we have
the
good news.
President.
We have one bit of good news. Senator Revilla will no longer interpolate the DILG, so we thank Senator Revilla for that.
Maybe we can do
And,
one or two more interpolators, Your Honor.
Yeah, next was supposed to be Senator De La Rosa, but he asked to skip his interpolation to allow Senator Recto to go ahead. I think he's still writing notes on what to ask the sponsor.
He's still rehearsing his manifestation, Your Honor.
He wants to give DPNP a hard time. No, I don't.
Perhaps you can call for a interpolator who will be quite brief because it's 12:20.
Yeah, maybe what we can do is the gentleman, the sponsor wants to have a quick rest. So
quick
maybe we can
health break
continue. Maybe we can continue now for a lunch break, Mr. President.
That's what I mean.
And then when we come back, tuloy-tuloy na ito.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. So if it's with the permission of the sponsor, quick lunch break.
I will yield, Your Honor. I will yield.
Yeah, we can come back at 1 o'clock, Mr. President. Quick lunch
That's
break.
too close. 2
Oh,
o'clock.
1:15.
Because the employees are the employees, the secretariat have to have lunch.
Maybe 1:30 would be all right.
1:30
That's all
would be
right,
fine,
Mr.
Mr. President. 1:30 is fine. Okay lang, 1:30, Secretariat?
Is a
Secretariat? I see General, walang problema yung...
general, walang problema.
Walang problema, sana hindi
Hindi
kumain.
kumakain yan eh.
Oo.
General is used to eating like a soldier. Your Honor.
2 o'clock would be just ideal.
Okay.
Mr. President, mahaba-haba yung ano natin, Mr. President. Ha? Mahaba-haba yung nakapila today. We have 2 pages of interpolator. Baka we can come back at 1:30.
All right, it's up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless we have an appointment, Mr. President, it's okay. We can come.
No, we can always
Adjust.
stay here or we call for Senator Villanueva or somebody.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. With that, move to suspend till 1:30 for a lunch break.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, session is suspended until 1:30 p.m. this afternoon.
Thank you.